Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 12, Text 17 and 18. Chapter entitled Vritrasura's Glorious Death. Text 17. Prana, Glaho, Yang, Samara, Ishvaksa, Vahananasana, Atra, Na, Gayate, Musya, Jayo, Musya, Parajayaha. I'll just chant this one since it's not up. Prana Glaho Yang Samara Ishvaksha Vahanana Saha Atra Na Gayate Musya, Jayo Musya, Parajaya. Translation: O my enemy, consider this battle a gambling match in which our lives are at stake, which our lives are the stakes. The arrows are the dice, and the animals acting as carriers are the game board. No one can understand who will be defeated and who will be victorious. It all depends on providence. Text 18. Shri Sukha Uvacha Indra Vritra Vachakshutpa Katalikama Pujayat Grihita Bhadrak Pahasangs Tam Aha Gata Vishmaya. Shri Sukha Vacha Indra Vritra Vachakshutpa Katalikama Pujayat Grita Bhaja Prasangs Tang Aha Gata Vishmayak Indra Vritra Vachakshutpa Matalikama Pujayat Grihita Vajra Prasangs Shri Sukha Uvacha Indra Vritra Vachakshutva Katalikam Pujayat Grita Vajrak Prasangs Tang Aha Gata Vishmaya. Ladies. Shri Sukha Uvacha Indra Vritra Vachakshutva Katalikama Pujayat Grihita Bhajak Pasangs Tang Aha Gata Vishmaya. Shri Sukha Uvacha Shri Sukadev Goswami said, Indra, King Indra, Vritravacha, the words of Vritrasura, Shrutva, hearing, Gata Alikam, without duplicity, Apujayat, worshipped, Grihita Vajra, taking up the thunderbolt, Prahasan, smiling, Tam, unto Vritrasura, unto Vritrasura, Aha, said, Gata Vishmayak, giving up his wonder. Translation: Shukadev Goswami said, hearing the straightforward instructive words of Vritrasura, King Indra praised him and again took the thunderbolt in his hand. Without bewilderment or duplicity, he then smiled and spoke to Vritrasura as follows. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. King Indra, the greatest of the demigods, was astonished to hear the instructions of Vritrasura, who was supposed to be a demon. He was struck with wonder that a demon could speak so intelligently. Then he remembered great devotees like Prahlad Maharaj and Bali Maharaj, who had been born in the families of demons, and thus he came to his senses. Even so-called demons sometimes have exalted devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore Indra smiled reassuringly at Vritrasura. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmritam Minatasma Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachanam Bangum Lankaya Degarim Yakripatamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataram. I like this last line. Therefore Indra smiled reassuringly at Vritrasura. So even though we can understand that there's been a philosophical discourse during the course of this battle, this is not your typical mixed martial arts cage fighting. On this field, these two personalities are each sworn enemies. We know that Vritrasura was created, and his only enemy would be Indra. Instead of the short mantra, where Indra would have many enemies, they wanted to gang up on him. In his haste, the mantra was mistakenly enunciated, and so instead of many enemies, Indra only had one enemy. But even with one enemy, one can be, as we see, almost defeated. Actually, Indra was defeated because he was swallowed by Vritrasura. Technically, that would have been the end of the fight, if not for the Narayan Kavacha. And because Vritrasura thought that that was the end of the fight, therefore he sat down and entered into samadhi. At the time of his choosing, he was ready to leave. So there is a very important lesson in this regard. Never turn your back on your enemy. Or in this case, never swallow him without digesting him. Because as we see, with the thunderbolt in hand, he was able to burst out of Vritrasura's abdomen, and then to proceed to cut off his head, which now, due to the process of samadhi, had become rigid. And therefore the thunderbolt had to circumambulate for 1 year to cut off Vritrasura's head. 1 whole year. Who can imagine? Such a weapon as this. Nobody has anything like that. But beyond the technical aspects of the fight, and it's a glorious fight, one can take so many instructions in so many ways. What should be one's attitude when confronting adversity? Because Vritrasura is giving so many motivating. I mean, actually, he's like a motivational speaker. People pay so much money. Companies hire these motivational speakers, and they go in to an assembly of hundreds or thousands of employees, and they give some pep talk. How to increase the sales, how to do so many things. And here, when Indra was struck on the jaw, and he dropped his thunderbolt, that was also the loss of the fight, technically. He had been separated from his weapon. His opponent, Vritrasura, could do anything he wanted to him at that point. Because Indra, apart from his weapon, really had no power. He was protected, but he couldn't defeat Vritrasura without that thunderbolt. And so what does Vritrasura do? because he's Harava Bhaktasya Kato Mahagunai, because somehow or other he's developed all the good qualities of the demigods, even though he's a demon. He tells him, no, pick up your thunderbolt. Don't be morose. Just like Krishna was telling Arjuna. You know, he was saying that where from, he's using this term, where from this weakness is coming. It's not typical. Kshatriyas aren't supposed to have that. So Indra was also displaying this weakness. The fight wasn't over. The enemy was still capable of defeating him. He had only cut off one arm, destroyed one trident. Still he had other, I don't know what he hit, which jaw. It didn't specify which hand. Of course, he only had one hand left, so he hit him with that hand and knocked him. So again, never underestimate your enemy. But the aspect of the motivational speaker is that here, just like Prahlad Maharaj, Indra at one point was wondering, how did Vritrasura get all these good qualities? Because he didn't have that association with Narad Muni. So how were they manifest? But somehow or other, and Prabhupada says in other purports that by the grace of a pure devotee, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, anyone from any station in life, Kirata, Hundra, all these races, Yavana, even Kasha. Now we call China Kasha Desh. It was the home of the Kasha people. So he also somehow became purified. And therefore he has to be accepted, as Indra accepted, as a pure devotee. And in fact, he becomes the spiritual master of Indra. Just so he can. And why is it called a glorious death? Because in full consciousness, understanding the goal of life. Because even a Kshatriya, he dies in a battlefield, he achieves at most the heavenly planets. Or if he's in the presence of Krishna, he may attain the form of Krishna. Or some similar liberation. But Vritrasura, by dint of his spiritual prowess, by dint of his exalted qualities, he is eager to die. He is eager to die. Interesting, just recently I was with my godbrother, Hamsarupa, who left suddenly. Actually, it was very sudden. The doctors had given 6 months, but in less than 2 weeks, he left. Because he saw no need to prolong it. He had to. So many years. I've known Hamsarupa since so many years. 1977, he came to New York Temple. And before that, he was in Portland Temple. He was such a person. He came, hadn't even been visiting the Sunday feast, just had received one book, came to the temple and surrendered. And so in this process of dying, we know what it is. It's the art of dying. In less than 2 weeks from the time he realized, okay, they diagnosed like this, I have no time to waste. I just want to fix my mind on Krishna. But still there's so many disturbances. So many devotees are attached. They've known for so many years. They're coming, oh, Prabhu, Prabhu, like this. Same with Prabhupada. Everybody came, Prabhupada, please stay, please stay. Of course, Prabhupada said, okay, I'll stay. But he just wanted to give solace to the devotees. So Hamsarupa was also saying, oh yes, I'll try something. And so somebody's bringing this Ayurvedic medicine, somebody's bringing this, just to give some solace. But internally, he was ready to go. And so someone put the phone to his ear because his sister, whom he hadn't seen in many, at some point, not too distant past, he went to reconcile with his father, whom he hadn't seen since he'd become a devotee. Because they had basically also written him off. Only his brother one time came to visit us in Vrindavan. But anyway, his sister called, and of course they're all sentimental, they're crying, and he said to her, he said, I'm dying and I'm happy to die. So that's what he told his sister. I'm dying and I'm happy to die. So these are instructions. So just like Richard Sora is giving these instructions, he's not afraid to die. And this is the difference between the demons and the devotees. The demons are always afraid to die, but the devotees are never afraid to die. Because they know that either living or dying, I'm serving Krishna. Either this life, the next life, Janme, Janme, Prabhu say. He doesn't, what does he care? This body, another body, as long as I can serve. So he doesn't, he acts in such capacity. And you see that devotees, you don't hear so much nowadays. But still it's there. Wherever there's difficulty, wherever there's demons, if you're preaching openly in some places, like we cannot preach openly in Iran, we cannot preach openly in Muslim countries, everything has to be kept hidden. But in the beginning in America, it was also like that. If you went to some place and somebody took notice, it was just a matter of time before you were arrested and put in jail. And kept until they could figure out what to do with you. But there are so many laws. No public soliciting or no soliciting without a permit. So they always find something. But then, inevitably, you're released. And again, you go back out. It used to be, they would drop us off. We'd go back to exactly the same spot. Because we're thinking they've already arrested us once, they're not going to arrest us again. And that was typically true. They wouldn't bother us. You know, because everybody, at least on that shift, they knew, okay, we've already done this once. It's a lot of paperwork, we're going to leave them alone. And then we go to another place. So this, actually, Sankirtan is such a thing. Whatever you can do to get the living entity to take a book. Prabhupada was very surprised at the ingenuity of the devotees, how they would approach people, how they would engage them in conversation, and how they would get them to take these books. One of our, actually the first big book distributor, name was Buddhi Mata. He also left his body in Vrindavan. I had the good fortune to be there at that time as well. From a very young age, these devotees joined. And all they knew was Prabhupada. He was famous, Buddhi Mata. He was big, tall, young man, like a football player. He would be all-American, they would say. They had a term, all-American. Means excel in any sport, whatever he chose. And whatever Prabhupada wanted, he was happy to engage. But in San Francisco, in the early 70s, we had just printed the big Krishna books. And nobody was distributing big books. Nobody, you know, incense, BTGs, like that, some pamphlets. And they used to distribute books to bookstores. They would go here or there, and they would. And so on the way back from one of these trips to the bookstores, because Prabhupada also started in the Oriental bookstores, Paragon bookstore in New York City. He had his sets, standing orders. So they used to do like that. So they came to a gas station, they had to fill up on gas. And in those days, people would come out and fill up the tank. You didn't fill it yourself. Like they still do in India. In America, it's all self-service. So Buddhi Mata got this idea, let me trade, let me barter for the gas. So the man pumping the gas was a young man. They were all the same age. I said, hey, I've got this really nice book. It's just come out. No one has ever seen this before. It's coming from India. It contains all these stories, mystical India. You really want this book? And the guy was like, oh, I really want this book. He said, look, I'll give you this book. Just you top up the gas tank, and this book is so valuable, I'll give you this book. The guy was like, yes. So I don't know how much the gas, in those days gas was very cheap. And I don't know what vehicle they were driving. They used to drive very economical cars, Giant Volkswagen or something else, the minibus. So it couldn't have been one. Maybe it was $10, $20. But he took this book, and that was the beginning, because it spread like wildfire. Buddhimanta came back to the temple. He was ecstatic. He just said, I know how we can distribute big books. Direct marketing. No more. Cut out the middleman. Cut out the bookstores. So this ingenuity, this is where we have to utilize what Krishna has given every individual soul. Everything is there. How do we access it? You see how we lose it. How Indra offended Brahaspati. He disrespected his spiritual master. So we can easily see how this can be lost. In the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, there was a chapter entitled The Wise Man. Prabhupada gives one. How does he say it exactly? One who is poor in devotional service. This is from the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. One who is poor in devotional service to Krishna is always in need of material gain. He's always in need of material gain. He's trying to compensate. He doesn't have the most valuable thing. So he has no choice. His intelligence is moga samoga kamana moga jnana vichetasa. His knowledge is stolen by illusion. But he cannot hear from anybody. He cannot hear from anybody. What did Prahlad Maharaj say? Not by joint conference. Not even by joint conference. And you see, everywhere we're having joint conferences. How to do this, how to do that. But what is the necessity? Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Bhakti Uchite. This is it's such a simple formula. Prabhupada also told us that in Mayapur in 1976. He said one has to become like apprentice. To see who's serving 24 hours a day. And he should follow that person. And in this way he will develop his Krishna consciousness. He said otherwise, he didn't want these temples to become hotels for sense gratification. So otherwise, he said, coming to this society will be useless. He's very strong about this point. That one should be very clear. Why is he coming here? If someone is looking for some material benefit, there are so many societies. Prabhupada used to quote them. This Rotary Society, this Chamber of Commerce, this Business Society, that place, this place, every place. But coming here for that is useless. Krishna will give him. But he doesn't understand. Less intelligent means he will have to take birth again. So where is the intelligence? Tadarajas tamo bhavo kamalobhadayas chicha. It means he has not come even up to the level of goodness. It looks like devotional service. Sometimes we see Those in the mode of goodness, sometimes it looks like devotional service. But devotional service means ahoitikiya pratiyata ye atmasupa siddhati. Sarva paribhinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmala. It has to be like this. One has to give up everything. He can't be thinking, oh, let me do devotional service and make money. What is that? Incompatibility. Factually speaking, one who is engaged in devotional service, he's not in need of anything, like Prabhupada says and teaches the Lord Chaitanya. But Krishna gives him everything, whatever he needs. This is a fact, whatever he needs. But if one has not realized that, then his devotional service is hindered. Because he's always saying, oh, I have to think of the future. I have to make something, nest egg. What do they call it? Nest egg. But this is illusion. This is foolishness. You can make whatever you want and Krishna can take it away in 1 second. How many people, you see they've amassed such huge, huge fortunes. Not too long ago, some people, they lost some money. They were engaging in some foolish activity. They're thinking, oh, I will double my money. I will triple my money. And Krishna took it all. You know, some rascals have some. They got some benefit. But what is their position now? What will happen to them? So Prabhupada said real compassion is to tell the truth even when it is unpalatable. That is the purport in Bhagavad Gita. Not that one tries to sugarcoat something. He says if a thief is known as a thief, then you must call him as a thief to protect other people. Otherwise, you are also implicated. It's just like if you see a snake on the road, you think, oh, I will not kill it. And then it goes and it bites your child. You're foolish. Or your mother, or your brother, or your sister. No, you kill it. You don't wait for it to kill someone else. That's false compassion. Oh, Prabhu, we can't do that. One has to be firm in his conviction. He has to know the difference between right and wrong. It is not a sentiment. Prabhupada gave us extremely clear instructions. In his books, in his Bhaktivedanta purports, in his lectures, in his living example. We've had so much good fortune to see how Srila Prabhupada acted in circumstances that might have bewildered us. And even when it was not clear to him, and this is another instructive case, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was present on the planet, and we've told this story, everyone knows this story, and big commotion, and Prabhupada was there at that time, new devotee, and the snake was found in the courtyard, and everyone's running around, what to do, what to do. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came out and on his veranda, because he has the upper floor, he said, kill it. And then immediately they killed it. He ordered the spiritual master, is our life and soul. No hesitation. But Prabhupada said, I had a doubt why Guru Maharaj is ordered to kill the snake like this. So he's instructing us. One doesn't accept things blindly. Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. And he said later on, when he read that 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj's instructions, and he read that verse, Vrishchika said, even a saintly person is happy when a snake or a scorpion is killed. Even a saintly person. So we have to be firm. Again, this Drita Vrataha, what does it mean, Drita Vrataha? that I can take a cold shower. I mean, that's there. That's nice. Even in the winter. That in the blazing summer, I can stay on the top floor of the ashram, surrounded by all sides by sun and useless fan blowing hot air. There's just some austerity. It's there. But even, you see, yogis can do these things. Even the poorest of the poor, they live under such circumstances. But that is not necessarily austerity. It is austerity. By their previous activities, they are born in such circumstances. It is not voluntary. But we have accepted these voluntary austerities. It is only for one purpose. Hamsarupa. That is to Sangsiddhir Haritoshanam. It's to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one else. Not my wife, not my children, not my family extended, this, that, the other thing, not my society. Only to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By pleasing Him, my conviction is that everyone else will automatically be pleased. Or not. But that's not my problem. Or not. Actually, with Hamsarupa, so at one point, he went back to help his father pass away. Because he had to go back for his visa, so he dovetailed this. And he remembered, everyone remembers their father. And he wanted to help him to make this transition. And he did. He preached to him at the end, even though the father had been, because the father was a military man, World War II hero. Hamsarupa was also a Vietnam era veteran. So there's some tradition. So he went and he saw that his father got the proper care, Tulsi lived at the last final moment of his death. Not just some sentiment, not to go and take the riches from the family to get my share of the wealth. He didn't take any of this. Nothing. He told the family members, I don't need anything. I have everything. Family members are all surprised. Because he is the oldest, he is the oldest son. So this is care for the family. Not that we go and sentimentally make I have to amass so much money and give so much to my family members. And what will they do with it? Eat meat, fish, eggs, take intoxication, have illicit sex and gambling. So you're also the sinner. You've enabled that situation. Maybe they were very poor and they couldn't afford meat, fish, and eggs. And now you've given them money, now they're eating so much abominable things. Oh, my son is a devotee. Just see now what I've got. But they don't know. Anyway, so much time we can continue to speak. But please, if there's any questions, comments, criticisms. Mike is there.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you told that Hamsarupa developed all the godly qualities, demigods of qualities. So he did not have any association. But in previous life, as a Chitraketu, he had Narad Muni association.
So we know from a previous life. Nahabakama now 16. Yes, but apparently he had nothing. So yes, so even from one's previous life, one gets the benediction. Narad Muni, his previous life, he brought him into the association of the bhakti, of these great sages. So, yes, that's there. Let us hope we all have such fortune in the future. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, Gita Nagari Prabhu.
I was always wondering, not mentioned, but did Vidyasura remember his past life?
It doesn't say. I was checking, just like Prabhu was checking. I also wanted to check to see how Srila Prabhupada treated Indra's consideration, that he had no outward association in this life. But we know that from a previous life. But that was Indra's, how it has happened, that you've become like this. So what is the question again?
I I'm just wondering, is it said any...
If he had any knowledge of his previous
If he had
life.
any knowledge of his past life, or was he completely forgetful of his life as King Chitraketu?
I guess that's the next chapter. We'll have to check that. Check back again. Does anybody know the answer for Gita Nagari Peru?
I don't think he remembered, but I'm not sure. That's why
But all pure devotees, in one sense, are Tri Kalagyan. So it may not be apparent or obvious. And Prabhupada says that the spiritual master is specifically empowered to give any spiritual guidance necessary for the welfare, the benefit of the disciple. He has unlimited spiritual knowledge. Unlimited. So we don't know what that, because we have no idea. Unlimited. He could have that knowledge, but we don't know. Any other questions? Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a very nice class. I was just wondering if you could elaborate more on...
Speak louder.
I was wondering if you could elaborate on serving 24 hours. You said to follow someone, but it's such a high standard.
I mean, our standard is following Srila Prabhupada. Anyone who was there knows. We used to guard Srila Prabhupada. I had a little association. Prabhupada's rooms, there was always a guard, just like here in Mayapur. We were talking the other day how the devotees, like Shruti Kirti, he would sleep under Srila Prabhupada's bed. And the other devotees would sleep outside the door. And and some servants had quarters nearby in a separate room. But in any case, those who had the good fortune to observe Srila Prabhupada under those circumstances knew that Srila Prabhupada was active basically 20 hours out of 24. And even in his sleep, anyone who was there knows that Srila Prabhupada was dreaming of Krishna. Because for the pure devotee, there's no difference in consciousness. And it's not really a dream. But this elevated state which we hear about, and we sometimes even talk about foolishly, because what can we understand about that? The Prabhupada was already there. One time on Henry Street, one of my first opportunities to see Srila Prabhupada in person, I remember the temple room was packed. And of course, all the senior devotees were close to Srila Prabhupada. So you had all the sannyasis and the temple presidents and the GBCs and everybody like that. Pancharatna was clever. He had purchased the first VCR in ISKCON. And he used it very advantageously so he could be close to Srila Prabhupada. He'd set up the camera right in the middle. Everybody was all the big guns, as we used to call them, were concerned that he was right in front of Srila Prabhupada on the tripod, focusing the camera. And anyway, it was his ingenuity. This comes back. How to capture for posterity. Had it not been for him and the other devotee in L.A., I'll remember his name in a second, we would have missed out on some of these, seeing some of Srila Prabhupada's most intimate moments. And one of them is this kirtan that I was in. And if you scroll through the ITV, wherever you can find them, there's some there, 1974 and 1975, Henry Street. These are the only 2 years on videotape in Brooklyn. So Prabhupada is chanting, and Prabhupada didn't, would chant Jai Radha Madhava, usually very short, and start class. And actually the devotees were chanting before that, before Prabhupada came in to sit on the Vyasa, and devotees were chanting, because it's right after the greeting of the deities. And then Prabhupada sat down and just started playing the kartals with the kirtan. And then Srila Prabhupada, you could see that there was this transition. You have to see it between the devotees chanting and Prabhupada chanting. And the kirtan starts. There were many great chanters back in those days, and we had devotees like Bharadraj and Parikshit and Agni Dev, Santosh, all these devotees. Some you may know, some you may not know. And Vishnu Jan Swami, and everybody's chanting and playing the drums. And Prabhupada just starts playing the kartals, and Prabhupada had a special way to play the kartals. And that's another thing. If you get to those who didn't have the opportunity to see Srila Prabhupada in person, you watch these tapes, you see these subtleties, how Prabhupada played the kartals, how he did everything, how he walked, how he talked, how he sat, how he stood up, how he played the kartals. Amazing. And you could, being there at one thing, but even just seeing it, you all of a sudden start to see these devotees caught up in Srila Prabhupada's ecstasy. This is not a normal thing, you know. In the presence of the pure devotee, he's chanting, he's in complete transcendental consciousness. He's not in there's no tinge. And so when he's chanting, everyone in that immediate vicinity is completely engulfed. And the temple room just explodes in ecstasy, and devotees are just jumping up and down. And because of the kirtans in this Henry Street temple, we had reinforced the floor because it was in danger of collapsing. We put all these special metal jacks that you can adjust. They have screw, top and bottom, and they're very sturdy, thick. And we had to put them all up and down the beams in the prasadam room, which is right underneath the temple room. And this went on. It's hard to, I think that it captures the full footage, so it's easily 5 or 8 minutes of this total ecstasy. And and anyone can participate. If you watch this tape now, you will be in ecstasy, because it is non-different. So this is like a secret thing, how to enter into that ecstasy. So I hope everyone gets the opportunity and you don't clog the internet bandwidth by searching, but it's there. You'll find it. 7475. Srila Prabhupada's lectures. And Geeta Nagri has a comment.
Pretty good friends with Tarika. He was one of the guys who used to...
Tarika, of course. We know Tarika very well.
Yeah, who used to guard Prabhupada's book door here in Mayapur.
Yeah.
And I used to talk to him about this, and it's his claim that Prabhupada never slept. He was the guy who guarded the door. He would say around 10 o'clock, 10:30, he would turn to everybody and say, okay, let's go to bed. Let's go take rest. And Prabhupada would lay down. Everybody would lay down, and because it's been a long day, everybody would immediately fall asleep. And then Prabhupada would immediately get up. He said it was his opinion, Tarika's opinion, that the only reason he said let's go to sleep or let's lay down is for all the others that were around him. And it's his claim, because he was at the door, that Prabhupada never slept. He said day after day after day he was guarding that door, and he claims that Prabhupada never slept.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. There'd be some anecdotal evidence involved, but we don't know for sure. When I used to guard outside Srila Prabhupada's door in Brooklyn, Prabhupada's sleeping room and sitting room are different places. He didn't do work in his bedroom. And so if he wanted to do work, he would go to his desk, which was in the next room, where the dictaphone was. And anyone who was outside the door would then hear Srila Prabhupada. So that's the, and of course he could have just done something else. He could have been chanting softly and we wouldn't have heard him. But that was the way we told whether Prabhupada was up or not. Because if he was up, he was either chanting or he was on the dictaphone. Or the secretary, you'd hear the bell, so many things. Because the guards were different than the servants. So like I said, in those circumstances, we used to hear Srila Prabhupada. There were tricks with Tarka, I mean anyone. If we were washing the pots, we could take a break in Henry Street and go out into the backyard. And Srila Prabhupada's window from the sitting room where he translated was like a gabled window. It came out a little bit. And his desk was right next. You can see some of the pictures. The room is painted blue and Prabhupada's sitting at a white desk and there's a cushion roll. We always used to put a cushion because Prabhupada would lean on the desk for hours. So we upholstered all of his desks. So you can tell that that's the Henry Street desk. And so we would be in the backyard and we could hear Srila Prabhupada translating. You could hear the click. In order not to waste the tape, he would pause. With every pause, he would just take his finger off and then again depress it. So you'd hear the constant click, click. So if you hear those original Krishna book transcripts, which are the only ones that have survived, unfortunately, but those are sufficient. You hear it, and he would say, and Lord Krishna said to, and then click. And then he would pick up right where he left off. And sometimes those clicks, in between those clicks, were hours. People don't realize it. They think it was just like a second later. Prabhupada would interrupt something, he'd take prasad, he'd do this, he'd come back. He wouldn't even rewind the tape. He would just start off exactly where he left off. So yes, Prabhupada was not an ordinary person. We are so fortunate in this movement. We have to always remember it. Prabhupada gave us a few very seminal instructions. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is something very intimate in one sense. This is all that's required. But that principle of yukta vairagya, one has to be very careful in its application. So many people saying, oh, Prabhu, I'm just doing my yukta vairagya. You know, building big, big buildings. And I'm dovetailing. Even though before I was nothing. So how is it you're yukta vairagya? Because yukta vairagya typically necessitates that one has had some previous experience. In one famous film, the Hare Krishna people, one devotee is interviewed. He says, I'm a potter. My father before me was a potter. And his father before him was a potter. One of the places in France or something like that. So he was doing his potting. And that's yukta vairagya for Krishna. He had some. But if one is a fisherman, what is this yukta vairagya? He can be a fisher of men at that point and bring people to Krishna consciousness, like the famous parable of Lord Jesus. Otherwise, we shouldn't adopt these false excuses. We should just be straightforward in ordinary dealings, honest and straightforward. That was Prabhupada's key. And another famous instruction was, this movement can only be destroyed from the inside. This movement is so strong that nothing outside, no government, no seeming catastrophe, flood, fire, demigods, nothing can destroy this movement. Why? Because Prabhupada said that ISKCON is the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this age. This is a bold statement. ISKCON is the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But how can it be destroyed from within? Because people do not take it seriously. They do not take it seriously. They think, oh, this is just some nice lifestyle. I'm so fortunate. I like the devotees. I like the prasadam. Actually, that's the thing. When in Mayapur here in Prabhupada's room, Guru Kripa came and he was angry. He had that tendency, Guru Kripa. He was very angry. He'd been collecting. Single-handedly, Guru Kripa practically and his Sankirtan party practically built Mayapur and Vrindavan. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Such a difficult yajna. No one, if you have not done it, you cannot understand. You cannot. People take it for granted, take it cheaply. So he came, he said, Prabhupada, I don't like my godbrothers, and I don't like the GBC, and I don't like this society. I don't like ISKCON. Prabhupada said. He said, I only like you, Srila Prabhupada. Said, I only like you. What did Prabhupada say? He said, I am ISKCON. I am ISKCON. So for anyone who thinks that by so-called leaving ISKCON, some people say, oh, ISKCON has changed. ISKCON is this, ISKCON is that. ISKCON is Prabhupada. That's what they should be thinking. And if ISKCON can only be destroyed from inside, that means it can only be saved from inside. So anyone who has some criticism, he should come and he should engage himself in trying to fix whatever he thinks is wrong. Of course, first he has to fix whatever is wrong with him. That's also a famous parable in the Christian pantheon. That before one looks for faults in others, he must first see his own faults. That is a tall order. But that introspection, that self-examination, Trinata Peace to nature, no, we know. This is essential. But as far as chanting is concerned, the most serious offense one can commit is to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. According to all of our great acharyas, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was just simply writing down the words of Mahaprabhu through the mouth of Haridas Thakur, who said, my Lord, I am simply speaking what you have making me speak. So that means directly from the mouth of Lord Chaitanya. He is telling us that this is the most grievous offense, to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. I think our time has run out, but one more question.
Haribol?
Haribol.
Yeah, I've actually heard that all offenses stem from inattentive chanting.
I was just reading in Harinam Chintamani that according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's analysis of this conversation, of course, I'm nobody, but according to that conversation and that analysis, there it is described that maintaining material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter, that is the most grievous offense. All of the offenses.
No, that's perhaps the most grievous, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that all these offenses come about by only
from
one.
inattentive chanting.
He says the root cause of all the offenses
okay.
is by inattentive chanting.
Now that inattentive chanting or neglected chanting?
He says inattentive.
Inattentive. Okay.
Yeah.
And now let's just analyze for a second what Prabhupada said. What does inattentive chanting mean?
Actually, I met one great sadhu. His name is Haridas Sain Babaji Maharaj.
Ah.
His great-great-grandfather was Shivananda Sain.
Ah.
And he gave this advice that of a morning when you chant, you tell your mind from 6 to 7 or whatever it is, 4 to 5, you don't speak to me, you don't disturb me. I'm fixing my
speak to the
mind
mind.
on the Lord, he said. So you should control your mind and tell your mind, don't disturb me.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was a little more radical. He said to beat the mind with brooms and shoes. We're not even going to ask the mind. We're just going to beat it into submission. So he must have known our minds. The Babajis, their minds are a little more tameable, trainable. But our minds have to be beaten. Thank you, Brew, for that comment. It's very helpful.
Hare Krishna.
Any other? Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Vritrasura ki. Vritrasura ki.